What is up, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome former NFL player Mike Furrey. How's it going, dude?
It's going great, man. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, anytime, man. Looks like you've been coaching as of recently, from what I'm looking at.
Yeah, we retired in 2010 from the league and got into being a coach right away and took a head coaching job right out of retirement and been making my way a little bit through the ranks. And right now I'm the head football coach at a D2 school in South Carolina called Limestone University.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting name, just the lime and stone, but there's nothing green about it.
No, there isn't. There's we actually have a quarry, a pretty big quarry on campus that's filled with limestone, and it's kind of the history of where the name came from. But we're about an hour south of Charlotte, an hour north of Greenville, so we're in a pretty sweet location.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. At least you got your opportunity to do coaching. But this is probably one of the most interesting stories. Besides the Kurt Warners and the Brock Purdy stories, man. Like, what it got you into football, man? Like, I mean, you came a long ways, man. You came like from Ohio State to Northern Iowa. But what got you into football in your early days, man?
Honestly, I grew up a big basketball fan. My whole family was actually baseball, so probably my best sport was baseball. The love that I had for the sport that I loved the most was basketball, and so it wasn't really until I was in high school when I just could go run for days and never get tired. And so a couple buddies of mine asked me to with them to some football training, conditioning stuff before the season started, and I did that and ended up having some fun. Next thing I know, I'm putting pads on playing football. So it wasn't really until I got into high school where that kind of came to an option. And then as I went through my high school career and success started really coming around in regards to some accolades and things like that, football obviously became a potential avenue to get into college.
Yeah, got to get somewhere from there. But it got you to Ohio State for a minute.
Yeah, I had a chance out of high school. A lot of people don't realize this, but I actually walked on to Ohio State. I was fortunate enough to have a pretty good senior season, and I was runner up to Player of the Year in the state of Ohio to Charles Woodson, and Charles Woodson goes to Michigan, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go. I didn't have really many offers, and so I was trying to figure that part out, but had a friend of mine whose dad was actually on staff at Ohio State and called during the spring and offered me an opportunity to walk on to Ohio State, which at that time was a no-brainer for me because I grew up about 12 minutes from the stadium at Ohio State, the Horseshoe, and grew up every Saturday, the scarlet and gray outfits and watching the games and all that good stuff. So definitely something I wanted to do and was a goal of mine.
I mean, it became a dream come true, even though you didn't play too long over there. At least you got an opportunity. But what led you to Northern Iowa?
Yeah, I wasn't really that physically developed when I walked onto Ohio State, and when I got to Ohio State, I had a couple guys that really took me under their wing and became great mentors of mine and pushed me. And of course, I'm pretty self motivated, so I went to work while I was there, and I ended up becoming pretty physically gifted, not just from catching the ball and running routes, but my speed and quickness. We broke some records at Ohio State that had been around there for a long time. So I went and asked for a scholarship, and they said no. I was a hometown hero kid, and at that time, they weren't going to give me a scholarship. And my goal then became to get to the National Football League. It wasn't so much of playing at Ohio State. It wasn't running out in the Horseshoe or playing against Michigan. My selfish goal, instead of going to Ohio State and playing at Ohio State, became National Football League. And I had a coach call me from Northern Iowa who had told me that I would be able to catch about 70 some balls at Northern Iowa and get an opportunity to play for 3 years and be on a full ride scholarship. So I took advantage of that and ended up in the middle of nowhere out in Iowa.
Oh yeah, it had to be like just playing. Like, I mean, what's the environment like in Iowa? It had to be like nothing out there, right?
Yeah, there was nothing. There was literally It was cornfields and a lot of flat ground, a lot of obviously a lot of farm and all those kind of things. And the University of Iowa was obviously a big school there, and we were about an hour away from there. But it was good for me. It was good for me because I could just go focus on football and school, and that's what I did for 3 years.
That's what's so interesting about going in the middle of nowhere is like being around certain people you don't know, and you can just still focus on your main task and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was pretty locked in. Like I said, the reason why I left Ohio State was to go fulfill a goal of mine, which was to become a national, to become a player, a professional athlete, and play in the National Football League. So I was pretty locked in when I left Ohio State and went to Northern Iowa.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. You got to pursue your dream. And shout out to Danielle Thompson. I guess she's giving you a compliment.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, So speaking of playing at Northern Iowa, when everybody brings up Northern Iowa, they bring up Kurt Warner a lot.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're very familiar with him, and you got a lot of interesting stories about him.
Yep. Yeah, Kurt is obviously a great friend of mine, and Kurt is really the main reason that I had a chance to get into the National Football League after I ran around a little bit. But we have similar backgrounds. Obviously, we both went to Northern Iowa. When I was at Northern Iowa, Kurt played for the Iowa Barnstormers. When I got done at Northern Iowa, I went and played in the XFL for 1 year, and then I ended up playing for the Iowa Barnstormers after that, which had moved to Long Island, New York, and became the New York Dragons. But there was the same administration and all that good stuff. And one of the higher ups in the administration for the New York Dragons was a carryover from the Iowa Barnstormers, so he still had a great relationship with Kurt. And when I was in New York playing, he had called over to Kurt Warner and told Kurt that, hey, listen, we got this kid.
I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted. Wait. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, bro. You're muted. Yeah, you're muted. You're muted. Can't hear you. Yeah, you're muted. You're muted. Let me message you. Think you're good. Wait. Let's see. How come it's still muted? Gotta unmute the mic. That's weird. Okay, I guess he's having some issues. He'll be right back, guys. Probably having some issues with the thing. All right. I guess I can hear you better now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, something just happened. You were muted.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
No.
Want me to go back in?
I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm on mute? Oh, hold up. No, I'm mute. Can you hear me now? I guess something's going on with the reception. Damn, he's got a mute issue. Dude, you're muted. I guess something just happened, but it's all good, man. We'll see what happens. I want to check, see what's going on. Maybe he'll jump back in quickly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me good?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So we were going back on the story of what you said about Kurt Warner, how you got your opportunity.
Yeah. So Kurt, Kurt, the fact that we went to school at the same place and we played at the same arena team, and he had a connection with the administration that I played for when I was with the New York Dragons, which was the Iowa Barnstormers where he played. They called over to Kurt and said, "Hey, we got a guy that you need to take a look at that could replace a guy by the name of Ricky Prohl, who you guys just left for the Carolina Panthers, and take a look at this guy." And Kurt said, "Actually, I'm coming out to commentate the arena game this weekend, or in 2 weeks from then." And so Kurt came out and commentated the game, watched me play, called back to the St. Louis Rams, and literally when I walked off the field from playing that game, they had called, and St. Louis called and offered me a contract to go out and play for the St. Louis Rams. So Kurt is obviously a big pivotal reason why I got a chance to go back into the NFL after trying to get in it for a couple of years, and we have obviously we formed a great relationship from that.
Yeah, and when you started off going to the Rams, were you just a DB or were you a wide receiver?
When I was with the Rams, when I was going into the Rams, I just came from the New York Dragons, where there I was the Iron Man, where you play both ways. So I played corner and I played receiver in arena. So I think that kind of sparked everything a little bit in regards to the fact that I could possibly do, and play both ways. But when I went to St. Louis initially, it was just to play wide receiver.
So that's what you were brought in for. So what was it like just to play with Mike Martz? What was his offense like?
Well, it was the whole thing, right? The greatest show on turf had just went to the Super Bowl 2 years prior to that. And Marshall and Torrey and Isaac and Kurt and Orlando Pace and all those guys were still in St. Louis at that time. And so, and then Mike Martz. So being around all those guys early in my career was just an awesome opportunity and an awesome experience for me to really just learn from some of the best that have ever done it. And so it was a great opportunity there. And I couldn't have asked for anything better going into my, basically my rookie season in the National Football League, being around those guys.
Yeah, it had to be kind of like just a unique story, because your versatility when you play different positions, that's what got you into the door. So, I mean, they had to play a factor. So what led you to play some defense for the Rams?
Well, here's what happened was, I started playing special teams, which is what you do when you're that third or fourth, fifth receiver. And I, obviously it was like a kamikaze type thing, throw your body in there, do all that good stuff, anything that you could possibly do to stay on the team or make the team. And so going into our third season, we had really hurt ourselves quite a bit in 2004, where our secondary really got depleted by injuries. And we didn't really have a lot of guys. And Coach Martz, being an offense guy, he really liked to dress those 5 or 6 wideouts. Well, when you have injuries on the defensive side of the ball, you got to take away from certain areas to bring people in. And one of those places was the wide receiver position at that time. And so during that off season, following the 2004 season, Coach Martz approached me with the idea that if I could play both ways and learn the defense and know the offense, which is what I did, then if anything were to ever happen, then I could still dress, for all those games. And yet if something, if I needed to go in on defense, I could go in on defense. And so that was kind of the mindset there during the summertime and the spring. So what I did was I went and I spent the whole entire off season with the defense, and I went over and learned the defense. And all of a sudden, we were getting ready to go for summer and getting ready to come back for training camp. And Coach Marks approached me and said, "Listen, you actually could probably go over there and start at safety." And so I went home, put on 20 pounds in about 6 weeks, came back all rocked up and ready to go, and played safety during training camp, and ended up starting in week 3 against the Indianapolis Colts at Indianapolis on a Monday night game, which was the first team that I ever went to out of college before they cut me. But I got a chance to go back and started my first ever NFL game as a safety.
That had to be interesting, especially going against Peyton Manning, because I'm pretty sure when you first came into the league, you had some good interactions with Peyton Manning, right?
Yeah, I spent 6 months with those guys when I first came out of Northern Iowa. That was the first team that I signed with as an undrafted free agent and a priority free agent to them, and so I got a chance to spend a lot of time with Marvin Harrison and Peyton and all those guys, and so it was pretty neat because the night that I started safety, 3 years later or 4 years later, was the night that Peyton and them were supposed to break the all-time record for quarterback wideout connection touchdowns, and so it was just pretty surreal that I spent some time with those guys on offense, and here I am getting ready to start on the Monday night game and play safety, but it got off right away. I hit on the opening kickoff because I played everything on the opening kickoff. That game, I went down and blew up the returner and caused a fumble. Recovered it and started off pretty good until they decided to throw the ball around a little bit and ended up breaking some records.
Yeah, you ended up breaking some records. I mean, I believe you had 4 picks for the season at safety, right?
Yeah, I think I dropped 4 too. They say when you move to DB, you can't catch, right? And one of the things that I've always really prided myself on is I could really catch anything, and always kind of been like that. So fortunate and blessed with that ability. But I dropped 4 interceptions when I played defense, but I also had 4 interceptions. I think there was a little strand there for a little while where I was had a chance to break the all-time record for most turnovers consecutively. I think it was going to be 5 or 6 weeks straight. Rather, it was an interception or a fumble recovery. And the good Lord's got a sense of humor. And that game that I was going to break the record in was actually against the Arizona Cardinals against Kurt Warner. And so I knew that was not going to happen because Kurt knew that was obviously something that was going into the game. But it's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then going from there, you kind of just, I guess you went to the Lions after that. But what was it? What was it like? I mean, when you went from St. Louis to Detroit, what was the environment?
Yeah. Well, Mike Marks got the head job or got the offensive coordinator job over at Detroit. And when he got that job, he called me, and I had just I actually woke up one morning and my name was in the paper in the St. Louis Dispatch that I had been cut. They were not going to bring me back. There was a game that we had about 3 weeks prior to that where I intercepted a ball and ran it back for a touchdown and scored. And they ended up firing the head coach, Jim Haslett, on that Monday when they lost. And all of a sudden, the St. Louis Rams fired Mike Marks, hired Scott Linehan, and he hired Jim Haslett to be his DC. And Jim Haslett came in, and they fired me. So
He holds that grudge on that.
Yeah, there was something about it, right? But so I woke up one morning and my name was in the paper in regards to being cut, and so I went home for a couple months and got a phone call one night that from Mike Marks that he took the OC job in Detroit, and he wanted me to come over there and teach 5 first-round draft picks the offense, and that's what he wanted me to do with Charles Rogers and Mike Williams, Corey Bradford. They had Eddie Drummond was over there. I mean, they had a crew, and so he wanted me to come over there and help those guys, and especially Roy Williams. And so I went over there and ended up signing the contract with them, a 1-year deal, and went over there and worked my tail off as what I do, and got those guys ready to go, and crazily, I just played safety, so I just lost 20 pounds and come back and play wideout for Mike. But from a crazy standpoint, in week 2, Mike Martz called me in the office and said, "Forget all these guys, you're starting." And that's when we went on to break the NFL record for the most catches that season by a guy
Oh,
that caught
dude.
none the previous year.
Yeah, before everybody was talking about the Wes Walkers or the Julian Edelmans,
Yeah.
man, you were the original, man. They gotta give you something with the OGs, man.
Well, I'll tell you, Wes and I are good friends. We talk occasionally, but when I left my first year, when I hit the 98 catches in Detroit, my wife kills me to this day a little bit. When I hit the 98 catches, I had got word that New England Patriots were that I had a chance to sign with them in the offseason. And I stayed very loyal to Detroit, and I stayed in Detroit and signed my contract to stay in Detroit. And all of a sudden, Wes Welker goes to New England. So we kid about that quite a bit. But
What could have been?
obviously,
What could
obviously,
have
those
been?
guys, him and Edelman and all those guys, Wayne Corbett, you know what I mean? All those guys. I mean,
Oh yeah.
those are some legit dudes. Those guys weren't trying to hang on like I was. Those guys were legit dudes. When we hit 98 catches, it was. I always tell everybody all the time. People say, it's, a one year deal, but to me, it was like I finally got an opportunity to play. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I was a little bit too old at the time, but it happened.
But you already were hitting your potential. So I mean, if you would have gotten more of your early opportunities, you could have at least got into that same caliber as what Julian Edelman and the rest of the guys are.
Yeah, but again, I'm sitting at St. Louis, and two of my biggest mentors, Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Isaac obviously has a yellow jacket, and Torrey Holt, I'm hoping, will have another yellow jacket. So you just got to wait your turn at times, right?
Yeah.
And but being around Mike Martz and him knowing and believing in what I could do, and learning the playbook and helping people and all that good stuff gave me a chance in Detroit, and here we are.
Yeah, it's got to be a blessing that you had an NFL career. Like you can even just look back and say, "Hey, I did play different positions, and that's what got me around."
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, and I use it to this day in coaching too, right? Is that you and I both started talking this. We started this conversation by talking about how out of high school we had to walk on to a college, and to be able to say that I walked on, and transferred. I had to make my own career by going down to a smaller school, playing in the XFL the first time. Spent 2 years in arena before I got a real good chance to play in the National Football League. I wouldn't trade it, but it's definitely a very, very humbling, but a pretty neat experience to be able to do all those things and really for the story to turn out the way it has.
Yeah, it's got to be a remarkable journey. Now you're becoming a coach, but since there's a lot of these underdogs that everybody's kind of looking into, they're looking for that next Mike Furrey or the next Kurt Warner. But what's your thoughts of Brock Purdy, man? You heard of his name a lot?
Yeah, I really have, and I really admire him. I actually even started watching Nebraska a little bit because his brother was playing out there, just because of what he's done, and I just when you watch him play the game, there is just a patience to him, a calmness to him that you got to respect, right? I mean, for him to be able to manage games, I got a chance to spend some time with Kyle Shanahan in Washington, so I've been through that playbook a little bit, and I know how, I wouldn't say, I know how rigorous it is and the demand that he has too, right? Kyle's such a great coach because he demands excellence, and that starts with that quarterback spot, and to be able to just see the poise that Brock carries and the way he just sits in that pocket and he knows where to go to the ball and he knows how to get the ball out, and if it's not there, he knows where to get. All that stuff that he's doing is just so impressive, and I've definitely become a big fan of his.
But do you look at him as more of a system quarterback or a game manager, or is he just better, more than that?
Well, let me tell you something. It's hard to be a system player in the National Football League because you still got to play ball, right? Right. You can be in any system in the world. I mean, There's people that have gone into Mike Martz's system and hasn't done very well, right? But yet Kurt Warner went in Mike Martz's system and became one of the best offenses in the world in the history of the National Football League for 4 years, right? You know, there's there's so many schemes, and I understand the scheme thing, but at some point in time, you also have to understand that a player has to have the hand-eye coordination. They have to be able to react to what they see. They have to be able to respond to what's going on. They have to be able to go through all those emotions, the pressure that they have in regards to the outside, the studying going in, and all that stuff. That's not system, right? That's
Takes a
takes
lot of
talent.
skills.
That takes skill.
Yeah.
And is it great to be in a great system? Yes. But you and I both have seen great players and great systems, and it just hasn't panned out. There's something in there. You look at Brock in regards to just the poise that he has in that pocket tells you that he's a very, very smart, high football IQ football player, right? Like he understands the game. He knows exactly what he wants to do, but that doesn't mean he can go out there and execute if he doesn't go out there and continue to, go through, the adversity of games or, the wins and losses and be able to respond. He had the 4 or 5 interception game here a couple weeks ago, which you and I both know what those weren't all his fault, right? It just happens.
It just happened like a couple tip balls here and there.
That's right. But it takes a special person, not a system person, right? A special player, not a system player, to be able to come back from that, go on the road, respawn, get another win, and become the number 1 seed in the NFC West or NFC. So, the system, I get it. I understand the system, but you still have to be a great player to become a great player in a great system. If that makes sense.
It takes it takes a lot from a player like you. I mean, the system is just a system, but it just takes a skill. And some people don't understand a system is something else. But if you're a special talent, you can master that system to the next level.
Yep, and I agree with it. So, so I don't ever want to knock. I would never knock a player for becoming a great player just because they were in a system.
Just like Kurt Warner just said it. Kurt Warner said the same exact thing.
I would never knock a player that's a great player just because they were in a great system. When you get a chance to experience the speed of that game at that level, let me tell you something. You better be special because the system's not going to allow you to be successful. Like you better be special. And the ones that wear those yellow jackets, that's just how good they really, really are. And if your name's ever mentioned to be the MVP in the National Football League, that's not because of a system. That's because of your capability and the success that you've had from how you've maximized your skill set. And you and I both know that obviously Brock Purdy's name has been involved in those conversations.
Yeah, he's been involved in certain conversations because they're saying the talent around him and because of Kyle, which I think is bogus because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks who played under Kyle and haven't done too well,
Yep. Well, I mean, look at Kurt Warner, right? Mm-hmm. Look at Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner arguably has the best running back of all time. Kurt Warner arguably has 2 of the best wideouts that have ever played the game, all 3 of them in their prime. His offensive line, unbelievable. But the man went to Arizona and also took him to the Super Bowl.
Exactly. See, he had the talent.
So it takes talent no matter what talent you're. Look at Joe Flacco, right? Look at Joe Flacco right now. Remember when Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens?
Yep.
Everybody was like, hey, what a great defense. And all we needed Joe to do was just manage the game and not give it up and let the defense win the game, right? Well, look what he's done with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, he's making him into a playoff team right now.
And that's a different system. So there's a lot of talent and a lot of skill set that has to be executed at a very, very, very high level with that speed of the game. Just because you're in a system, the system doesn't dominate those attributes, those things, and can it prepare you? Can it set you up? Yeah, but you still have to know the system, right? You still got to be able to study the system. So I'm with you too. Great players great players aren't a product just of great system. Great players are because they're great players.
I like that, bro. Like you even come from a player's perspective, and a lot of these so-called experts, they just think they know what they're talking about until they watch the actual games and all that. But
Yep.
man, we're already hitting the 30-minute mark, man. Before we end this show, man, it was a great time. I know you got some coaching and some stuff going on, man. Maybe in the near future, I got to get you back on once again, man.
Yeah, anytime you guys want, I really appreciate you having us on and or having me on, and it's fun to talk about these things. You don't really get to do this all the time, especially after you retire. And my players don't want to listen to our careers. My players want to know about Calvin Johnson or know about guys that I played with. But it brings them back a lot of great memories. But at the same time, just to be honest with you, when you talk about that, to be able to play 7 or 8 years in the league, it also makes you it reminds you how thankful you are in regards to being able to have a chance to play at that level, the capability, the skill set, and it kind of reminds you how just really how fortunate you really were to be able to do it.
Yeah, you inspired a lot of other kids, man. Like,
well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, never give up on your dreams. And there's a lot of these Mike Furreys, there's these Kurt Warners, there's a lot of these guys that were doubted and writing off in some ways, but they never gave up their dreams.
Yep, that's right.
And never say never. But oh wait, before we end this, I think he was asking about this question. I know you follow the Lions, so what's your thoughts of St. Brown not getting into the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, I was actually going to text Dan Campbell here a couple of days ago. I had a chance when I was with the Chicago Bears to evaluate Amon-Ra St. Brown, and this kid is a winner, a competitor, and the season he just had, the Detroit Lions Detroit Lions has not been put on the forefront yet to where they need to be getting all those accolades that they're capable of be getting, and that's coming, right? And I think when people look, obviously with the history of the Detroit Lions, of the guy played for the Lions, blah blah blah, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now what they're doing, what Danny has them doing, and what Amon-Ra St. Brown did, it's crazy. It's crazy, but he definitely is deserving of it. And I know he's deserving of it as what he did in regards to statistics, but that man's deserving of it because of his preparation, his work ethic, his desire, the way he loves his team. There's everything that goes into that right there about that young man. And this isn't going to be the last time he'll have an opportunity to do it. But you would think it's like, listen, we were in Chicago. Let's take a look at Roquan Smith, right?
Yeah.
And that kid balled out for 1 or 2 years, never got voted in. So you just never know. You never know. But St. Brown should be in, I believe, 100%.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, he's been very consistent for the Lions, but man, there's just a lot of this controversial with the call with the lineman, like the downfield. Did you think it was uncalled for?
Oh, on the Dallas?
Yeah, that Taylor Decker play.
Yeah. The only thing I can say on that is I've watched the review on it. It looks like Decker went over and said something to the ref, and the ref went over and said something to Dallas, and Decker was the only one standing around. And I think the most frustrating part about all that, if any of you guys know Dan Campbell, he's very, very thorough. He's very, very prepared, and I do think I believe he mentioned that he explained that to the officials before that game, which is what you do. We do it here. Like, we do it here in college.
And looked at all the stuff.
Like we do it right here in college. Like I do it here at D2, and I know he did that. I know he had that, and I know he drew it up, and I know those guys knew what they were going to do, and that I think that's what's unfortunate about that situation. And again, because what you're doing is now you just screwed with kids' careers, you screwed with their opportunity, because now are they the 2 seed? Are they going to be could they be the 2 seed in the NFC, or now they're going to be the 5th or 6th seed or whatever it is because you called back the 2-point conversion to win the game? That's where it gets frustrating when you start screwing the players based upon some of the results. So we'll never know, right? We'll never know the full.
We'll never know, man. We'll definitely never know. But hey, man, definitely appreciate your time and best of luck on your your Limestone University. I need to get some of your student prospects for the draft, man. I like doing interviews with the draft prospects, man.
Yeah, we got 2 guys right now. It's pretty neat. Our coaching staff is very, very unique. We've got 4 guys on our staff that played in the National Football League. Jericho Cotry is one of them. 12-year wideout in this league for the Steelers and Jets and the Panthers. Nate Garner's our offensive line coach, 7 years in the league, and Jordan Todman, our running back coach, 7 years in the league. So they've done a phenomenal job of recruiting players. And I think the coolest thing that we're getting ready to see coming up is we have 2 young men that will be involved in this year's NFL draft. They're both wideouts, and one of them's got a pretty good chance of being drafted. So he'll be the first one ever drafted out of Limestone University. So would love to get them on.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to get them on one of the platforms. But for everybody else, thank you for your time. And this is it for everybody. And have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem, man. Anytime.
All right.